Marcus Langston pulled into the cracked, sun-faded lot of Sunshine Motors with a quiet exhale and a death grip on the steering wheel of his battered Honda Civic. The engine sputtered as he parked, a final cough of defeat from a car long past its prime. The irony hit like a punch to the chest. He was the man behind 12 high-performing dealerships across 3 states, a mogul in tailored suits and pristine boardrooms. Yet here he was, arriving like a customer teetering on the edge of survival. And that was the point. For months, the numbers from this particular branch, the one he used to call his pride and joy, had been in a nosedive. Complaints had replaced compliments. Hidden fees, aggressive upselling, and whispers of dishonest deals were staining a brand he'd spent 2 decades building with sweat and sacrifice. He'd tried the usual playbook: pop-in inspections, team meetings, incentive shifts. Nothing changed. The cracks were no longer just in the parking lot. They were running through the core of the company, and worse, through the reputation that defined his life. So Marcus made a decision he never thought he'd consider: to infiltrate his own business, not as the boss, but as the buyer. He became Mark Lewis, an unshaven, slightly disheveled single father barely making it through the month. His Armani suits were replaced by a wrinkled button-down and jeans worn thin at the knees. His Rolex stayed in the drawer at home. Today, the only thing on his wrist was a fading tan line. Even his wedding ring had been tucked away in his wallet. The man he was pretending to be was divorced, exhausted, and desperate for a reliable SUV for his teenage daughter. An everyday man navigating heartbreak, financial strain, and the need to protect his only family. He'd rehearsed the story until the lines felt like memories, until the pain sounded like truth. As he stepped out of the Civic and into the morning sun, the dealership looked almost unfamiliar. From this perspective, the place didn't feel like a monument to his success. The bright red "Best Deals in Town" banner looked gaudy now, the showroom glass too polished, too cold. He walked through the doors and was immediately met with an overly cheerful greeting. "Good morning, sir. Looking to drive home something special today?" The salesman's hair was styled like he'd used a ruler to part it, and his smile was so wide it felt rehearsed. Marcus forced a weary smile. "Just looking," he murmured. "Need something reliable for my daughter." "Then you've come to the right place," the young man beamed. "I'm Jake. We'll get you taken care of. What kind of budget are we working with today?" Before Marcus could answer, another voice sliced through the showroom like a guillotine. "Jake, let me take this one." The voice belonged to Rick Morrison, the sales manager, and according to the numbers, the dealership's top closer. Rick walked over with the air of a man who was used to winning. Tall, square-jawed, wrapped in tailored confidence and cologne. He didn't just enter a room, he dominated it. His handshake was firm, bordering on aggressive. "Rick Morrison, sales manager here," he said. "And you are?" "Mark Lewis," Marcus replied, making his grip just weak enough to sell the character. Rick's eyes did a quick scan. Jeans, thrift store shirt, anxious posture. Marcus could feel it happening. The judgment, the categorization. In seconds, Rick had filed him away. Blue collar, emotionally vulnerable, probably under pressure. A perfect target. "Mark, my friend," Rick said with an easy smirk, already nudging him toward the lot. "You look like a guy who knows value. And today, you're in luck. I've got something I've been holding back for just the right customer." They walked past rows of glistening vehicles, their hoods gleaming like polished promises. Each had a price tag that might as well have read, "Out of your league." Rick talked non-stop, buzzwords, sales tricks, stories that sounded too good to be true. Marcus nodded along, but his stomach churned. Finally, Rick stopped with a dramatic flair, as if unveiling a masterpiece. There she is. Tucked in the far corner of the lot was a black Chevy Tahoe. 4 or 5 years old, maybe more. Clean exterior, shiny rims, no obvious damage. But something about the way it sat there. like a dog that's been kicked too many times. Felt off, as if it had a secret waiting for the wrong person to find it. Marcus stared at it, the backstory of Mark Lewis alive in his mind. His daughter Emma, his sleepless nights, the weight of needing to protect what's left of his family. He had walked in pretending to be a desperate father, but standing in front of that Tahoe, he suddenly didn't have to pretend anymore. Something about the Tahoe didn't sit right with Marcus. On the surface, it looked flawless, too flawless. Rick's voice floated beside him like a salesman's lullaby, his palm gliding across the hood like he was grooming a thoroughbred before an auction. Low mileage, single owner, garage kept, Rick said with practiced ease. Came from an estate, elderly gentleman, hardly drove it. Real shame he passed away recently. Family's looking to offload quickly. Marcus walked the length of the SUV, fingers brushing the side panels with the muscle memory of a man who'd appraised 1,000 cars before breakfast. The paint was immaculate, mirrors slick without a single scuff. That in itself was a red flag. A 4-year-old daily driver, no matter how pampered, would carry a few battle scars. The tires were brand new. Maybe that was just maintenance, or maybe someone was dressing the car up for a fast sale. What kind of mileage? Marcus asked, playing along. Just north of 40,000, Rick responded instantly, his tone too smooth to be spontaneous. The guy was a Sunday driver. Church, groceries, that's it. Barely broke it in. Marcus gave a nod that didn't quite reach his eyes. Sounds almost too good to be true. What's the asking price? Rick's grin widened, almost cartoonish now. He leaned in like a magician about to reveal his final trick. Well, Mark, I like you. You've got that honest, hardworking dad vibe, so I'll cut you a deal. It's listed at 28 grand, but for you, 19.5, practically a steal. It was a deal so lopsided it made Marcus's stomach tighten. He knew this market better than most. A 2019 Tahoe with 40,000 miles should be fetching at least $35,000, 0 cents in this economy, if not more. This price wasn't generous. It was either desperation or deception. That's incredible, Marcus said, voice low with forced awe. Are you sure there's nothing wrong with it? Rick clapped a heavy hand on Marcus's shoulder, trying to radiate warmth. Mark, I'm straight with my people. The family's just trying to move past a painful chapter. Legal headaches, estate taxes. They want fast cash, nothing more. Their misfortune is your blessing. But Marcus wasn't listening to the words anymore. He was watching Rick's face, the gleam in his eyes too eager, the pitch too polished. It was a performance, and Marcus had seen enough of them to know when the actor wasn't telling the truth. Can I see the title? Maintenance history? There. A flicker. For just a heartbeat, Rick's mask slipped. A tiny pause, the kind you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. Then, back to the act. And let me grab it. Why don't you take a look inside, feel it out? As Rick strode away, Marcus's chest tightened. He opened the driver's door and slid in, surrounded by a sterile perfection that smelled more like air freshener than truth. He adjusted the rearview mirror, an old habit, and that's when he saw it. VIN plate. It looked wrong. Not glaringly, but the screws were subtly mismatched, the edges just slightly raised. To most, it would be invisible, but to Marcus it screamed of tampering. His heart thudded. If the VIN had been removed and reattached, then every story Rick spun might be a lie. The estate, the old man, the low-mileage fiction spun into a high-profit con. Rick returned moments later, a manila folder in hand, smiling like the devil offering a contract. Here we go. Title, records, the whole package, he chirped, handing it over. Marcus opened the folder slowly. his fingers steady but his pulse racing. Everything looked official. Stamped forms, typed lines, even a believable owner, Henry Henderson. "Hard to read this name here," Marcus said cautiously. "Oh, Mr. Henderson," Rick replied with ease. "Sweet old guy. Took care of this baby like it was his grandchild." But as Marcus flipped through the pages, his instincts screamed louder. The maintenance history was too clean, months of silence where there should be records. The Florida registration? Odd, considering Rick claimed it came from a local estate. Marcus closed the folder. "I want to think it over. Talk to my daughter. Can I bring her back tomorrow?" Another flicker. Rick didn't like that. His voice tensed, the urgency slipping through. "3 other buyers lined up, Mark. I'd hate for you to lose this." Classic pressure tactics. But Marcus wasn't just a dad in a wrinkled shirt. He was the man who'd trained guys like Rick. "I understand," he said evenly, "but this is for my daughter's safety. I need to be sure." Rick paused, calculating. Then he relented, smile returning. "I respect that. Tell you what, leave a deposit, 500. I'll hold it for you." Another red flag. Legitimate lots didn't push deposits for overnight holds. Still, Marcus nodded, pulled out the cash he'd brought for just this situation, and handed it over. As Rick stepped inside to finalize the receipt, Marcus caught movement across the lot. A young woman, mid-20s, pretending to shuffle paperwork, but her eyes kept darting toward them. When their gazes met, she looked away fast, but not before Marcus saw it. Fear, not suspicion, not curiosity. Fear. Rick returned, receipt in hand. "See you bright and early, Mark. Don't let this slip away." Marcus nodded, slipping the folder under his arm. As he walked back to the Civic, a chill chased him. He had a name. Henry Henderson. A suspicious VIN. And a manager too slick for comfort. But most importantly, he had a crack in the facade. An employee who looked like she knew something she wasn't supposed to. That night, Marcus didn't sleep. At 3 a.m., his kitchen table looked like a crime scene. The paperwork was spread out, highlighter marks bleeding into the margins, inconsistencies stacking up like bricks in a wall of fraud. The Florida registration was a direct contradiction to the estate's story. The gaps in maintenance records, 6 months with nothing logged, were a red flag. But the final blow? When Marcus ran the VIN through his dealership's database, it returned a result no car that new should ever show. Record not found. Impossible. Every vehicle built in the last 2 decades left a digital footprint, unless someone had tried very hard to erase it. Marcus returned to Sunshine Motors the next morning, not alone this time, but with backup, his niece, Sarah. At 19, she had the right blend of teenage attitude and sharp observation skills, perfect for the role of his daughter, Emma. In truth, Sarah was the kind of person who questioned everything, a trait that made her both a natural skeptic and an invaluable partner in his covert mission. As they walked toward the gleaming glass doors, Marcus leaned in close and whispered, "Remember, nothing impresses you. Every car is either overpriced or not cool enough." Sarah flashed a smirk. "Uncle Marcus, I've been disappointing adults since I could walk. I got this." The moment they stepped inside, Rick's face lit up with an almost cartoonish enthusiasm. "Mark, you came back, and this must be the daughter we're shopping for." He leaned forward, beaming. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma," Sarah replied, her voice flat and soaked in apathy. "And I'm not your sweetheart." The flicker in Rick's smile was brief but telling, a glitch in his polished persona before he quickly recovered. Of course. Emma, your dad and I found the perfect ride yesterday. Want to take a look?" As Rick led them toward the back lot, Marcus's eyes were drawn once more to the young, dark-haired woman from the day before, the receptionist. Today she was seated behind the front desk, her fingers tapping idly at a keyboard, but her gaze tracked them like a silent alarm. "There she is," Rick said, gesturing with exaggerated flair toward the black Tahoe. Sarah gave it a slow, exaggerated glance. "It's black," she said, her voice drenched in mock disappointment. "I wanted red." "We could always get it repainted," Rick offered quickly. "Or maybe we find another one in red?" No, Marcus interrupted, staying in character. "Emma, we talked about this. We need something reliable, not flashy. This one's perfect." Rick launched into his story again. Mr. Henderson, the estate, the grieving family. All delivered with the same scripted confidence. But in the full light of day, the car told a different story. Marcus noticed it immediately. The rear bumper, though clean, was a slightly different shade of black. Not enough for a casual shopper to see, but for someone who lived and breathed cars, it was a warning flag. "Mind if we pop the hood?" Marcus asked. "Absolutely," Rick said with a salesman's grin. Engines pristine. Mr. Henderson was fanatical about maintenance. As the hood creaked open, Marcus bent over the engine, pretending to admire its condition. But what he was really looking for was proof, and he found it. The VIN stamped on the engine block didn't match the one on the dashboard. It was half obscured by dirt and tubing, but the mismatch was unmistakable. "Dad," Sarah said from the driver's seat, "can I check it out inside?" "Of course, honey," Marcus replied, still hunched over the engine. Inside the vehicle, Sarah played her part flawlessly. "All the radio presets are in Spanish," she called out. "Didn't you say the old guy was local?" Rick hesitated, his smooth exterior cracking. "Well, maybe he likes Spanish music. A lot of folks do these days." It was a weak cover, and it wasn't just Marcus who noticed. Across the lot, Janet suddenly stood up, knocking over her coffee cup. Her eyes locked onto Marcus, wide and panicked. Rick turned toward her. "Everything okay over there, Jenna?" "Fine," she said too quickly. "Just clumsy." But Marcus saw her slip her phone from under the counter and start typing, her fingers moving fast and deliberately out of Rick's line of sight. Marcus straightened. "You know what? I'm having second thoughts. The price feels too good to be true, and my ex-wife always said—" "Mark, wait," Rick said, his voice rising in pitch. "I get it, okay? It's a big decision. But I'm telling you, it's a solid deal. Look, I've got the paperwork right here." He pulled out the same manila folder as yesterday, but Marcus noticed something different. Rick's hands were trembling. Marcus took the documents and scanned them again, but this time his eye was sharp, methodical. The title had only been issued 3 weeks ago. For a vehicle that supposedly came from a probate estate, that was lightning fast. Too fast. "This title's fresh," Marcus said aloud. "Lawyers," Rick replied with a shaky chuckle. "Red tape, delays, but it's all good now." Before Marcus could respond, Jenna approached quickly, clutching a piece of paper, pale as parchment. "Mr. Morrison," she said, voice quiet but urgent. "There's a call. They said it's about a VIN inquiry. They said it was urgent." Rick paled. I'll take it in my office. Don't go anywhere, okay?" He disappeared into the building. Jenna lingered near the Tahoe, pretending to fix something on the windshield. Then, when Rick was out of sight, she stepped close. "I don't know who you are," she whispered, "but you need to be careful. That car, there's something wrong with it, and it's not the only one. They fired someone for asking too many questions." He slipped a small piece of paper into Marcus's hand and walked away without another word. Marcus unfolded it, heart thudding. The message was short and chilling. "Check with Alina. They fired her for asking questions. Be careful who you trust." Marcus felt as if the ground had dropped out beneath him. This wasn't just about one shady deal or a crooked manager. If Jenna was right, Sunshine Motors had become a front for something far more dangerous. "Dad," Sarah said, stepping out of the Tahoe, "you look like you've seen a ghost." "We need to go, now." They left fast, slipping out of the dealership like shadows. As Marcus glanced back, he saw Rick at the office window, phone to his ear, his other hand waving toward the Tahoe. The way he moved, frantic, aggressive, told Marcus everything he needed to know. Rick knew something had slipped through his fingers. That night, Marcus sat at his desk, the glow of multiple monitors casting shadows across his face. Each screen held a piece of the puzzle, and what he saw chilled him to the bone. The dashboard VIN came back clean in most databases, but the engine VIN, Sarah had discreetly taken a photo. That VIN traced to a Tahoe reported stolen from a dealership in Phoenix 6 months ago. The theft had been high profile, part of a coordinated heist involving 3 vehicles and a disabling of the dealership security system. The dashboard VIN, meanwhile, was traced to a Tahoe totaled in a Louisiana flood. It was supposed to be destroyed. Someone had taken a stolen SUV, given it a new identity, and was now selling it under Marcus's own. He picked up the phone, voice steady despite the fury in his chest. "Phoenix Police Department," a voice answered. "Detective Rivera, please. It's about a stolen vehicle." "This is Rivera." "Detective, my name is Marcus Langston. I believe I've found one of your stolen Tahoes, being sold on my own lot." There was a pause, then a low, stunned response. "Are you absolutely certain?" "I photographed the engine VIN myself. It's there. Falsified paperwork, and possibly an entire operation behind it." "Jesus," Rivera muttered. "You just stepped into something big. We've been chasing a ring that's been moving stolen high-end vehicles across state lines using swapped VINs and scrubbed histories." "This could be the break we've been waiting for," Detective Rivera had said, his voice low and taut with urgency. "But, Mr. Langston, if you're right about this, you could be in serious danger. These aren't small-time crooks we're dealing with." Marcus felt a jolt of cold dread radiate through his body, as if someone had poured ice water into his bloodstream. "What do you mean?" "There was a case, 3 months ago, a dealership employee in Texas. He started asking questions about suspicious inventory. A few days later, he was found dead, ruled an accident on paper, but we never bought it." Rivera didn't have to finish. Marcus knew what he meant. The message was clear. People who got too close to this ring ended up permanently silenced. After the call, Marcus sat in silence, staring at the slip of paper Jenna had given him. "Check with Alina. They fired her for asking questions." The parallel was too blatant to ignore. Texas, now here. This was organized, coordinated, and dangerous. It took him less than an hour to find Alina Reyes. A quick sweep of social media and employee databases narrowed it down to a modest apartment complex just 20 minutes from his house. He debated calling, but something told him this meeting needed to be in person. When she answered the door, the chain lock remained fastened. She was younger than he expected, late 20s maybe, but her eyes were worn, wary. The look of someone who had learned not to trust easily. "Ms. Reyes," Marcus said gently, "my name is Mark Lewis. Jenna at Sunshine Motors told me I should speak with you." Recognition flashed in her eyes, followed quickly by fear. "You're the one asking about the black Tahoe," she said, voice just above a whisper. "You know about it." She looked around the hallway, then unlatched the chain. "You'd better come inside and we better talk fast." Her apartment was small but meticulously kept. A row of boxes lined the wall, packed, taped, and ready, as if she expected to leave at a moment's notice. She led him to the kitchen table, which was covered in documents, folders, printed emails, VIN reports, handwritten notes. "I worked at Sunshine Motors for 2 years, she began, her hands trembling slightly. "Started in service, moved into inventory. That's when I started noticing things." Paperwork that didn't make sense, VINs that didn't match, cars arriving without auction records. Marcus leaned in, scanning the paper trail she laid out like a prosecutor presenting her case. "How many vehicles are we talking?" "At least 20, Alina whispered. "In just the last year. Probably more. I made copies of everything, shipping manifests, altered registrations, emails between Rick and people I'd never even heard of." She handed him a printed email thread that made Marcus's heart sink. Conversations between Rick Morrison and someone named Tony Martinez. They discussed inventory rotation, clean titles, and VIN numbers needing final polish. It was thinly veiled code, but damning all the same. "I brought my concerns to Rick," she continued. "He told me I was being paranoid, but when I wouldn't drop it, he got angry. Really angry." "What happened next?" "I went over his head," she said with a bitter laugh. "Emailed corporate, your corporate. 2 days later, Rick accused me of stealing pens and paper. Said he had security footage. It was absurd, but they fired me anyway." Marcus's jaw tightened. His own leadership team had been alerted to potential fraud, and they'd done nothing. Worse, they'd let an honest employee be railroaded out of her job and reputation. He took a slow breath. "Alina, I need to ask you something serious. Did anyone ever threaten you, or make you feel like you were in danger?" Alina's face went pale. "Why would you ask that?" He told her about Rivera, about the employee in Texas, about the implications of getting too close to this ring. Her voice trembled. 3 weeks after I was fired, someone broke into my apartment. Nothing was taken, but my papers were rifled through, like they were looking for something. And I've been getting hang-up calls, all hours, no voices, just silence. The air in the room turned leaden. This wasn't just white-collar crime. This was something darker, more ruthless. "There's something else," she said, reaching for another folder. "That Tahoe you asked about? It's not the first one. 3 months ago, Rick sold an identical vehicle. Same year, same model, same story. Old man, estate sale, sold to a young family." She slid a photocopy across the table. Tom and Maria Henderson, 2 young children, beaming smiles beside their new SUV. "If that car is stolen," Alina said, her voice hollow, "they're driving around in a ticking time bomb. 1 traffic stop, 1 plate scan. And their lives could be ripped apart," Marcus finished grimly, "or worse." Alina nodded. "And I have 6 more like that, different buyers, same pattern." The weight of the evidence before them was staggering, enough to shatter Morrison's career and possibly unveil a multi-state criminal enterprise. But it was also enough to make them both targets. "Alina," Marcus said carefully, "I think we need to take this to the police. Tonight." She didn't hesitate. "I've been waiting months for someone to believe me. Let's end this." At the police station, Detective Rivera was already waiting, having driven through the night from Phoenix. He sat across from them in a small conference room, evidence piled high between them. "This is incredible," he murmured, lifting one of Alina's folders. "We've been chasing this ring for 8 months. You just gave us more in one night than we've found in all that time." Alina looked exhausted, but there was a light behind her eyes now, a glimmer of vindication. "I knew something was wrong. I just never thought it was this big." "Oh, it's big," Rivera said. "This is a professional operation. They steal high-end vehicles, move them across state lines, use VINs from scrapped cars, then sell them through real dealerships. The money's massive, and until now, they've been ghosts." Marcus leaned forward, tension stiff in his spine. "What about my employees? Who else is involved?" "We'll find out," Rivera said. "Rick Morrison is clearly a key player, maybe the local coordinator, but this scale? He's not working alone." Just then, Rivera's phone buzzed. He checked the message. His expression darkened. "Martinez. he said quietly. "The guy in the emails, just found dead in his apartment. Single gunshot, staged to look like a robbery." The room went silent. Marcus felt the chill seep back in. "They're cleaning house," Alina whispered. "Exactly," Rivera said. "Which means we don't have time. Mr. Langston, I need you to do something dangerous. Tomorrow we need you to go back, try to complete the sale. We'll have undercover officers nearby. But we need Rick on tape admitting the truth." Marcus didn't flinch. "What do you need me to say?" "Play the eager buyer. Push for answers. Get him to explain how they got the vehicle. We need as much detail as we can." That night, sleep was a stranger. Every creak, every distant car horn twisted Marcus tighter with anxiety. Twice he checked the locks. Once he checked on Sarah. But by morning his nerves had forged into something sharper. Resolve. At exactly 9:00 IEM, he stepped back onto the lot of Sunshine Motors. This time, wearing a wire, and ready to bring the whole empire down. Detective Rivera and 2 other officers were stationed in unmarked vehicles surrounding the lot, their eyes trained on every movement. The tension crackled in the air like an approaching thunderstorm. Inside, Marcus stood just inside the showroom doors, wearing a wire so discreet it might as well have been stitched into his skin. Rick spotted him almost instantly, crossing the room at an unnatural pace, his energy jittery, like a man watching the walls close in. "Mark," he said breathlessly, "I was hoping you'd come back. Great news. Got the price down even more. $18,000, 0 cents. What do you say?" The desperation in his voice wasn't just apparent. It was screaming. He was trying to dump the stolen Tahoe as fast as possible. Marcus knew why. Rick had either sensed something or discovered everything. "That's an incredible deal," Marcus replied, channeling false awe. "But I have to ask, how were you able to drop it so low? A buddy of mine said this kind of SUV should go for over 30. Rick hesitated. His smile thinned like stretched fabric. Then, cautiously, he leaned in and spoke in a low voice. "Between you and me, sometimes we get access to inventory through channels that aren't exactly conventional." "Unconventional?" Marcus echoed. Rick gave a darting glance toward the reception desk. Then, voice barely audible, "Look, the whole estate sale thing, that's just for customers. The truth is, we work with people who can get us vehicles that need to be moved. Fast." Marcus's heart slammed against his ribs. Rick was confessing. He kept his tone steady. "I'm not sure I follow." Rick chuckled nervously. "Come on, Mark, you seem sharp. Sometimes a car falls off a truck. Sometimes paperwork gets mixed up. What matters is you're getting a nearly new Tahoe for half the price. Don't overthink it." Before Marcus could respond, Jenna appeared at his elbow, pale as paper, her voice barely a whisper. "Mr. Morrison," she said urgently, "there are police cars outside, lots of them." Rick froze. The blood drained from his face in a blink. Then, in one sharp motion, he grabbed Marcus's arm, squeezing hard. "You," he hissed. "You're not who you say you are." Marcus stared back, feigning confusion. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, cut the act," Rick snarled. "I ran your plate last night. That beat-up Honda, registered to Marcus Langston. As in Marcus Langston, CEO of this whole damn chain." The mask fell. Marcus straightened to his full height, the pretense gone. His voice was firm, calm, and deadly cold. "You're right. I'm Marcus Langston, and you've been stealing from me, defrauding customers, turning my business into a criminal operation. That ends today." Rick's expression collapsed into chaos, rage, disbelief, panic. "You have no idea what you've stepped into," he growled. "This goes way beyond me. You think you've won? You think arresting me fixes this?" Before he could say more, the front doors burst open. Detective Rivera stormed in, flanked by 4 officers, weapons drawn. "Rick Morrison," he barked, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit grand theft, auto fraud, and receiving stolen property. Hands where we can see them." Rick didn't resist. The handcuffs clicked shut, but his eyes stayed locked on Marcus. "You think this ends with me?" he spat. "You think cutting off one head stops the whole beast? This thing runs deeper than you'll ever understand." But Marcus wasn't listening. He was watching Jenna cry quietly by the desk. He was thinking of Alina, finally believed, of Sarah, safe, of every family who would now be spared the fallout of a fraudulent sale. Rick Morrison's reign was over. Or so Marcus thought. 30 hours later, Marcus stood in a secure conference room inside his corporate headquarters. The whiteboard before him looked like a crime drama come to life. Names, photos, maps, red string tying the entire country together. "What we pulled from Rick's phone and computer," Rivera said, addressing the room of FBI agents, detectives, and corporate security, "is worse than we imagined. This ring spans at least 12 dealerships across 6 states. Marcus stared, stunned. 3 of those dealerships were his. "My own lots," he whispered. "They used my business to launder stolen vehicles." "And there's more?" added Agent Sarah Chin from the FBI's Organized Crime Division. "We've found signs that someone inside your corporate office has been feeding the ring information. Inventory data, shipping schedules, access codes." The words hit Marcus like a fist to the gut. Someone he trusted, someone who sat in meetings, smiled at holiday parties, had been selling him out. "We also found something else," Rivera added grimly. "Several messages sent from burner phones to contacts listed in Rick's logs after his arrest. They were traced to an address 2 miles from here. Someone's watching your headquarters, Mr. Langston." Just then, Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. "There's a man here. Says it's about Rick Morrison. Won't give his name. Says you'll want to hear him out." Agent Chin stood. "Get him wired up again. This could be the next domino." 20 minutes later, Marcus walked into his own office to find a stranger sitting behind his desk, like he owned the building. The man was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and a suit that probably cost more than most cars on the lot. He didn't bother standing. "Mr. Langston," he said coolly. "I'm Vincent Carrera. We need to have a conversation about your recently arrested employee." Marcus sat across from him, his heart pounding. The wire beneath his shirt felt like a lit fuse. "I'm not sure there's much to talk about," he replied. "Rick Morrison betrayed my company and my customers. He's getting what he deserves." Carrera laughed, humorless. "You're thinking too small. Rick Morrison was an asset. His arrest caused significant disruption to a very lucrative arrangement." "What arrangement?" "The kind that's kept your dealerships profitable. The kind that's made sure your lots were never empty, even during the supply chain crisis. You thought your sudden boom in inventory was luck? No, Mr. Langston, that was us. We made sure your numbers soared. All we asked in return was discretion." Marcus felt sick. It wasn't just that his business had been used. It was that his success, the growth he'd taken pride in, was built, at least in part, on criminal deception. Carrera leaned forward. "You have 2 options now," he said, voice like a blade. "Play ball, or risk becoming the next unfortunate accident, just like Martinez, just like that poor kid in Texas." The room felt colder than ever, but Marcus kept his expression calm, his hands steady, because every word was being recorded, every threat, every name, every twisted truth. Outside the office, Rivera and Chin waited, headphones on, agents in place. The final act was about to begin. and Marcus Langston was done playing their game. The recording device in Marcus's shirt pocket was capturing every word. Carrera was doing more than admitting to fraud. He was laying bare the full scale of the theft ring, the deliberate manipulation of Marcus's business, and the corruption that had made it all possible. Marcus locked eyes with him. "And if I refuse to continue this arrangement?" Carrera's expression darkened, his voice turning razor sharp. "Then you'll quickly learn how fragile your empire really is. Your suppliers will lose shipments. Your best salespeople will suddenly quit. Insurance policies will vanish. And your banks, they'll call your loans high risk. You'll bleed out before the next quarter." "Are you threatening me?" Marcus asked, his voice like ice. "I'm explaining reality," Carrera replied smoothly, straightening his tie like this was just another business meeting. "You have 48 hours to decide. Be part of the solution or part of the problem. Choose wisely." Carrera turned toward the door, expecting silence, maybe even submission. But Marcus made a decision in that moment, one that would change everything. "Vincent," he said calmly, tapping the panic signal on his wire, alerting the agents outside. "There's something you should know." Carrera paused, one hand on the doorknob, annoyed. "What?" "Rick told me everything, before he was arrested. Every name, every location, every detail. And right now, the FBI is raiding all 12 dealerships you just mentioned." Carrera's face crumpled like paper hit by fire. "That's impossible. We have people inside law enforcement. We would have been warned." Marcus stared at him, unwavering. "You had people inside. Past tense." Suddenly, the office doors burst open. Agent Chin led a team of armed FBI agents. "Vincent Carrera," she said loudly and clearly, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit grand theft auto, racketeering, money laundering, and operating a continuing criminal enterprise." As the agents cuffed him, Carrera turned toward Marcus, his eyes brimming with venom. "You have no idea what you've just done," he spat. "This organization has been running for 15 years. Arresting a few middlemen won't stop it. There are others, people who won't be as reasonable." But Marcus didn't flinch. "Let them come," he said quietly. "My customers deserve better than lies. My people deserve better than fear. And I deserve better than success built on crime." As Carrera was led out of the building, Marcus finally allowed himself to exhale. His body had been in a constant state of readiness for weeks. Now, for the first time, he felt like he could breathe again. The fallout was enormous. Back at corporate headquarters, Marcus stared at the wall-to-wall board of connections. Rivera explained how Carrera had been running the entire Southwest division of a vehicle theft empire. FBI agent Chin presented new intel. Someone within Marcus's own corporate team had been feeding the criminals sensitive logistics data. The betrayal was personal, painful. In total, 47 arrests were made across 6 states. The theft ring had been the largest of its kind in the region, and Marcus's own dealership chain had unknowingly been one of its primary fronts. The damage was severe. 2 of his dealerships were shut down entirely, 2 corrupted to clean. 14 employees were arrested or fired. The financial cost? Nearly $2 million, 0 cents in legal fees, victim compensation, and internal compliance reforms. But Marcus didn't regret a single dollar of it. 6 months later, he stood in the newly renovated Sunshine Motors showroom. This was no longer the site of secrecy and fraud. It was a symbol of transparency and redemption. Elena Reyes, once silenced, now empowered, stood before the full sales team, conducting her first training session as Director of Compliance and Ethics. "Integrity isn't a line in a brochure," she said, voice calm but commanding. "It's how we earn trust. If you see something that feels wrong, paperwork that doesn't line up, pressure to cut corners, you come to me. immediately. Marcus watched her with pride. Her first act had been to install a whistleblower system, anonymous, protected, and powerful. It was already changing the culture. Outside the glass, Jenna, the receptionist who had risked everything to warn him, was cheerfully washing a bright red SUV. After Rick's arrest, she'd been promoted to assistant manager. Her courage had helped save the business. As Marcus stood by the showroom window, a familiar voice called his name. Mr. Langston. He turned to see Tom Henderson, his wife Maria, and their children, the family who had unknowingly bought a stolen Tahoe. "Tom, Maria," Marcus said warmly, shaking their hands. "How's the new car treating you?" "It's perfect," Maria said, beaming. "We thought we'd lost everything, but you made it right." And he had. Marcus made sure every affected family, 9 in total, received full refunds and compensation. It wasn't required by law. It was required by conscience. "Mr. Langston," Tom added, pulling out his phone, "I posted a review of how you handled everything. It's gone viral. People want to buy from someone they can trust." Customer satisfaction scores across Marcus's dealerships had never been higher, not because of flashy deals, but because of honesty, responsibility, and visible change. "Dad, look," the Hendersons' daughter Emma, the real Emma, pointed outside where Jenna waved back at her. "That's the lady who helped. She's the one who saved us," Maria said softly. "No," Marcus replied. "She saved all of us. She believed in doing the right thing, even when it was dangerous." His phone buzzed, a message from Detective Rivera. "Carrera's Florida associates just took plea deals. It's over, all of it." Justice had finally been served. Marcus looked around the space, now filled with smiling customers, honest staff, framed customer testimonials, and a newspaper article displayed on the wall. The headline read, "Local CEO goes undercover, dismantles multi-state fraud ring." But the real story was more personal. It was about what it takes to rebuild after betrayal, what it means to lead with conscience instead of ego, what it costs and what it saves, to tell the truth. His assistant approached. "Your 3 o'clock is here, the family from Phoenix, the ones whose Tahoe you helped recover." Marcus nodded. "Send them in and let them know we'll do whatever it takes to make it right." As he walked toward his office, he passed a new memorial plaque installed near the entrance. It bore 3 names, the employee from Texas, Tony Martinez, and one other, anonymous, never identified, who paid the ultimate price for asking questions. Below their names, a single inscription: "In memory of those who risked everything for the truth." Outside, the sun was setting over Sunshine Motors, bathing the lot in gold. Marcus Langston had gone undercover to save his business, but what he rescued was far more valuable: his integrity, his people, and his peace. And from that day on, every car that left his lot wasn't just sold, it was earned, one honest transaction at a time.